Wrigley and consumer insights at Procter & Gamble. Her work is published in Kellogg on branding in a hyper-connected world. She holds an MBA from the Kellogg School of Management at Northwestern University, a digital marketing certificate from the Johnson Graduate School of Management at Cornell University, a Bachelor's of Science in Biomedical Engineering from the University of Cincinnati, where she graduated #1 with a Presidential Leadership Medal of Excellence. Cindy and her husband Ernie raced around the world and won in season 19 of The Amazing Race, a reality TV competition show. Cindy and Ernie and their 3 sons live in the Chicagoland area. And without further ado, please welcome Cindy Halvorsen. Hi, Cindy.
Hi, Anthony. How are you?
Doing wonderful. My first question to you, I know we went through a very extensive bio, but if you can share with us a little bit about your background and a little bit about what you currently do.
Sure. First of all, thank you so much for the honor of being at the event tonight. I am a huge advocate of Asian professional development and advancement. So this has been really near and dear, and we've been trying to make this happen for a while. So I appreciate you having me. So a little bit about myself. You gave a pretty good intro. Thank you for covering all of the, T's and crossing the T's and dotting the I's on the things. But as you mentioned, currently I'm a advertising sales executive at Google, which basically means on a day-to-day basis, I manage and lead a team for multi-$100 million business where we sell ads to our advertising partners. The specific industry that I focus on today are home durable goods and athletic wear, particularly in footwear. And so home durables would be like a refrigerator or a tire or a mattress, something that you would buy and it would be in your home and used for maybe 8 to 10 years before you replace it. So we work with many brands to help them connect to the right consumers at the right time so that we can help bolster their sales. So that's me on a day-to-day basis. I'm located in the Chicagoland area. So it makes it a little bit easier that we're in a virtual environment because I'm able to do this online. And as you mentioned, I have 3 boys, Maverick 6, Finn is 4, and August is 3 months. One of them or 3 of them may come barging in here at any moment. So we'll see how that goes. But that's me on a day-to-day basis. And some of the things that I do on the side is I'm a huge reader. You'll see I have a lot of books behind me. We love to travel. We just planned our next trip, our first trip after the pandemic. Well, I guess it's still the pandemic, but our first trip coming up shortly. And we love just, trying out different foods and experiencing different cultures. And of course, lots of movies and family time.
Wonderful, thank you. And just going through your bio, I see that education plays a big role in your career progression. Can you tell us how you got started in digital marketing and product innovation?
Sure. Yes, I'm your guilty as charged first generation here, Chinese American via Taiwan. And so my parents very much focused on education. They're both professors. So that if that gives you a sense of anything about their thought of education, I think we have like 13 graduate degrees among my core family of 5, and I only have 1 of those. So that just tells you what you need to know about that. But I actually started in undergrad at the University of Cincinnati, and I have a Bachelor of Science in Engineering, in biomedical engineering. And I was intending to go to medical school, but somewhere along the way, I just realized that my queasiness around blood and needles was just not going to make sense for me to stay in medicine. And then I really didn't love engineering. I actually interned at J&J for 3 years. I spent half my year working and half my year in school. And it was a good challenge. I learned a lot. I think engineering is a great fundamental education experience, but I wasn't fueled by it. So I started doing some networking around other women who had left and graduated prior to me and how they switched from engineering into some other fields. And I had one mentor who shared with me her experience that really resonated with me. She actually moved into consumer marketing. And the part of consumer marketing that she was in the research end. So you kind of mix the problem solving and fundamental skills that you get in engineering education with business ownership. And because I was a big on-campus leader in my undergraduate experience, I thought about each of the organizations that I led as businesses. And so when I started to apply that lens into things, I made my transition into consumer research. And then 3 years in at Procter & Gamble, I ended up going to Kellogg School of Management at Northwestern in Chicago. And then I moved into the general management end of it, where you basically own the whole, profit and loss statement or the P&L statement for each of the brands. And you're really driving the strategy of growth and renovation and innovation for brands. After that, I was at Wrigley and at Kraft Foods, which is now Kraft Heinz. And then I made another transition to Google in advertising sales. So if you need one story of someone who's made a lot of pivots in life, I am definitely here to share with you my experience and how it's possible and how you can do it.
Wow. Wow, that's quite of a career trajectory.
It's a playground. Some
Yes.
days I want the slide and other days the monkey bars. So
Yeah, I have to ask, was your family very big in like the medical background? How did they feel about you getting into the corporate business world?
yes. Well, so my parents just always said, I want you to be a doctor or a lawyer or an engineer. And I thought, oh, okay, I don't really know anything about life. I'm like 16 at this point, trying to apply to schools. And I got into a program that was engineering for the first 5 years, and then you go straight into medical school. So I thought, I'll kill two birds with one stone. We'll just knock out all this schooling in 8 years. And I just halfway through it said, I'm not going to make it through this. So I'm going to keep moving. It was not an exciting moment for my parents when I told them I was not going to medical school. I went through orientation. My parents went through the parent part of orientation, and I just couldn't do it. It wasn't in my heart. So it was, a tougher conversation with mom, but now she's super proud and she's totally fine with the life I've chosen for me. But it was not an easy conversation.
Oh, I definitely bet. Yes, and just to add that to that conversation, just growing up here in the U.S. and as an Asian American, did you face any obstacles outside of your family into getting where you are right now?
This is a great question, especially in the racial political climate that we're in now. I won't dive too much into politics, but I do want to share my thought and opinions on this. So I grew up in a suburb of Ohio, and it was a very Jewish community. There was 100 kids in my class, and I kid you not when I say 95 of them were Jewish, and the other five of us were the others. Not that the Jewish community like made us feel others. You just, you're not the dominant group there, but with the Jewish community also being in itself in the broader American landscape a minority, they were very welcoming and open to us, even though we weren't Jewish. So I really didn't feel that ostracized growing up, and I didn't really feel like people didn't accept me for who I was. But as I unpack over the last couple of years, I've been really focused on my Asian heritage. For a long time, I've just many of us, I think, strive to be white adjacent. We're like, hey, I'm just going to work hard. I'm going to do the things I need to do. We're fueling the model minority myth. There's a lot of things that there's societal pressure for us to have. And so some of those stereotypes certainly played out. And as I think back on my life growing up, I very much played into the model minority stereotype. I very much was a heads down, work hard, the loudest duck gets shot, where your peers around you, it's all about the squeaky wheel gets the oil. And I grew up really thinking like, I'm just going to be quiet and people are going to value the work that I do as a true meritocracy, and that we're living in this egalitarian world where it is about community and it's about family and it's about working together. I had to unpack a lot of that as I moved up the corporate ladder, which I know we'll talk about here in a few minutes. But unpacking some of those really deep rooted mental maps and behaviors that I had, they all stemmed from growing up. And so all of those obstacles I didn't notice until later in my career. So I would have never felt at the moment of, oh, I'm really far behind. I really have this like tough obstacle to break through. But you unpack that and you see why later you maybe progress a little bit slower than your peers. So we'll have a few things to talk about later on that.
Of course, absolutely. So, what is your advice to our young Asian American professionals on reaching that corporate ladder?
Ooh, I have lots of advice. And I've spent probably 2 years learning about this, and I'm going to have a certificate for diversity, equity, inclusion from Northwestern at the start of the summer here. So I've been spending a lot of time reading and educating myself in a way that I really hadn't considered before. So Asian Americans, we make up 6% of the US population roughly. We're roughly 12% of the workforce, right? So we're over indexed in our available to work as part of the population. But we're only 2 or 3% of the Fortune 500 CEO level. So if you think about it, there's a pinch point, right? We're very heavy on the bottom and the base. And at some point, there is a broken rung in the ladder for Asian Americans. And you have to be able to push through that. So over the last few years, I've been really, really deeply unpacking what it means to be an Asian American worker in corporate America. I think it's going to be different in the different industries that you're in, but just having seen it from, blue chip consumer goods companies, even through Google as a tech company, Google's 48, 47% Asian. We still have this challenge here. And it's amazing that we do, but it's also eye-opening that we do. And so some of the advice that I have lots of advice, but I'll try to narrow it down to a few. One is really observe your leadership. Observe their behaviors and the way that they interact with each other, their charisma, the way that they manage and lead others, and the way that they manage their own perceptions, basically their personal brand, right? So how are they managing the perception of themselves in the corporate environment? And then this is the hard part where the work happens. You have to adjust your behaviors so that you can reflect that environment. And I know that it sounds like, oh, you're asking me to be somebody I'm not. Not really, but I'm asking you to, really unpack, like, how can you be authentically yourself, but also bring to the table those characteristics that are considered executive characteristics, because they're likely not how you've been cultured as an American Asian in this world. And it is different than your Caucasian American peers, and something that you have to be vigilant in making that distinction from, because meritocracy is a bit of a myth. A lot of it's in personal brand management and your own leadership. You're the only one that cares as much about your career as anybody else. And you can find those shepherds and those leaders to partner with, but you do need to really have focus on how others perceive you. So that's one big, big piece of advice. Another piece of advice I like to give young professionals starting out is start building your network or start nurturing your network. As I mentioned earlier, I was networking with women who had graduated a couple years ahead of me, who helped guide me into the right career path for me. So your network is going to be important. There's two types of people that I really encourage you to have in your network. One is a mentor. A mentor, think about it as a coach. Like you're an athlete on a team, your mentor's your coach. They're going to tell you how you perform. They're going to help you correct your behaviors. They're going to sit with you while you practice. They're going to be your safe spot before you get on the field. Your sponsor is your agent, the person who's going to go out and broker you and be like, Cindy brings this quality to the table. They're connecting you with opportunities and then allowing you to shine once you get connected to that opportunity so that you can win that opportunity. So any athlete has coaches and agents. We should think about that for ourselves as we're navigating the corporate ladder. Have your coach and your agent, or your mentor and your sponsor, to help you do that. And then the third piece of advice is really be curious and continue to learn. This I didn't learn right away. I'll be honest and transparent on that. When I left college, I was like, oh, I'm, the most senior leader on campus and I'm this big deal and whatever. I was not when I started in corporate America. I was this 22-year-old, very, very young woman, especially being Asian. I look much younger than I actually was. So, there were people around the office probably thinking like, what's this 12-year-old doing? Like, where's her mom? Is it take your daughter to work day? Versus, I just in my head thought I was so amazing, and I'm not. I needed to take a bite of humble pie. But yeah, just be continuous and continuously curious, learn, self-educate, be open to thinking about a new way or approach to things, and just never stop striving to be a better version of yourself every single day.
Wonderful. And those are some great, great takeaways for our Asian professionals. Thank you for that. So now we're going to switch a little gears and talk a little bit about your experience in Amazing Race. And I guess the very first question we want to start off is, how did you get into the Amazing Race?
Yes, The Amazing Race. For those of you who aren't familiar with it, it's a reality TV competition show where teams of two race around the world and complete a series of challenges and tasks. And the first team to cross the finish line wins $1 million. And it's all televised on reality TV on CBS is the network. So my husband and I, when we first started dating, we started watching The Amazing Race, just like as we hung out, take out and watching Amazing Race. And then we got to a point where we're like, okay, would you do this challenge or would I do this challenge? There's some challenges that only one person on the team could do. Or we would start to say, oh, that team is really strong in this way, or this team is really weak in those ways. We would do it differently. And so we started to envision ourselves on the show. And finally I was like, we gotta submit a video. Let's apply for the show. So you submit a quick 3-minute video. There's a very long paper questionnaire. And we dropped it in the mail. I honestly didn't really think that we were ever going to get called. But luckily, a couple of months later, okay, so I'm really type A if you haven't noticed yet, but my name and contact information is all over application. And the casting producers decide to call Ernie. They had somehow found his phone number and his email. And they said, Ernie, we wanted to talk to you before we called Cindy because is she really this intense? Is she really this on top of everything? Is she this much of a planner and a preparer? And he's like, yep, that's pretty much who she is. And then he immediately calls me. He said, I know you don't pick up your phone normally. Pick it up. The next person to call, pick it up. Okay, bye. And I was like, oh, that was really strange. And what is going on? And it ended up being the producer. So throughout casting, which if there's questions later, I'm happy to talk about the casting process. We were ultimately selected as one of 11 teams to race on season 19. And so, we fit what they were looking for that season and, just had fun with it.
Yeah, and definitely, I believe that your type A personality has really, really sparked that impression on that producer to really get you and Ernie into that competition. Can you tell us your experience during filming? What was it like? Like, is
Yeah,
there something that we as the audience don't know that you have experienced?
sure. Probably a lot. So this is a draw behind the curtain. The whole season, which is 12 episodes, films in 3 weeks. And you actually get on the plane and go around the world entirely from start to finish. The times that you don't see on camera, we're actually quarantined either in a hotel room or a random room or somewhere where we can't interact with the other teams. So that's some of the fun behind the scenes things. You can't bring any source of money, currency, any bartering equipment. Like if I brought, I don't know, a lot of nice jewelry and I was bartering with cab drivers to take you around the world, you can't do any of that stuff. There's no technology, no cell phones, no GPS, no like anything to help you navigate. And at the time when we did it was 10 years ago, there wasn't really smartphones. I would think that it would be much harder today to do it because we're so reliant on our smartphones that if I was left to my own devices in the world, I would not really know how to get around the world. But at that time, we were able to. We had a lot of fun. I mean, if you watch the season, you pretty much see everything that we've seen in a much shorter version of it. But we don't get to do too much outside of that.
Yeah, I have to know, what is your favorite destination that they put you?
Ooh, there was a lot of good ones. I think one that I'm really excited to go back and travel to. Well, first is Taiwan. My parents grew up there, but we were in Taiwan for a day, so we really didn't see much of Taiwan. And then the second one was Copenhagen. I thought Copenhagen was just a very like charming town, and everyone on the streets are like beautiful, and everyone was so nice, and the scenery was so beautiful. So I would love to go back to Copenhagen.
Yeah, and I think, Amazing Race really, specifically for the contestants, you're really exposing yourself to different cultures and different experiences. Um, of course, you go through these series of the challenges throughout each of the destination. Can you tell us which one would you say is your toughest challenge that you?
Ooh. The toughest challenge on the show. Okay, so we're in Panama and we're 30 stories in the air, and I'm walking on a tightrope across two buildings. can you imagine what the wind is like at 30 stories in the air? I'm like this, we've lost a lot of weight already on the race. I'm like wafting in the wind and I have to make it across that tightrope. And we'd practiced a lot of things before going on the show. We did not practice getting on a tightrope across two buildings in a downtown city. So I was terrified for that one. But we had done a lot of preparing and we knew that we had good teamwork and good communication. And so Ernie's on the other side of the building, just cheering me on, like, you got this, babe, you got this, just go. And I'm sitting there meditating while I'm walking across. I'm like, okay, I can do this. And I didn't look down at all and I made it across, but that was the most terrifying.
Definitely, definitely unexpected. And where would you find a tightrope at home? You can practice it. um, as during your experience, of course, did you feel like you were chosen to compete in this challenge because you fit a certain stereotype, that you were an interracial couple? What is your thoughts on that?
Yeah. So the casting producers very much were typecasting by archetypes at the time. So they were looking for something specific. For our season, it just happened that they were looking for an interracial couple. They had had one a few seasons previously, but that was the only one. And so out of all the interracial couples that applied our season, we were one of two that were taken into casting. And because they could see us clearly so different, I'm very type A, very like first generation Asian, fit the model minority myth, all these things, right? Of stereotypical Asian. And my husband is a blonde hair, blue eyed, like boy next door, American baseball player type of guy. And he's much more easygoing, fun, energetic. And so they just were hoping that we would have so much tension on the race. We proved them wrong. We worked really well on the race, just like we do in normal life. But I think that they really wanted to show viewers the opposites attract storyline, and that was the archetype that we were fit under. So we were definitely chosen because we visually look different, but also we very much personality wise are very opposite.
Yeah, and just post production and once filming has wrapped, and once it was shown that you guys were the winners of the Amazing Race, did you receive any negative feedback on like fan forums? How did you handle it?
I was not great at handling it. I did some reflection on this recently too, especially with all the, recent violence against Asians. And I realized that I was very much bullied online. Of course, there were amazing, amazing supporters, but for every 10 amazing supporters who just loved, and sent such good messages to us, that one bad one would just stick with you and just crush you. I had a really tough mental time, and there were days where my husband would say, you cannot go on the internet today. Like, do not read any of the bulletins or fan forums because you are not going to like it. And I realized I didn't fit what people thought, what Americans, like the middle Americans, thought of Asian women. So the stereotype, as many of you probably can relate to, is meek, quiet, submissive, yes, womany to your partner. And I would get messages like, I can't, how dare you take a white Caucasian man and marry him? Take him away from a white woman. And at first I was like, oh, that's gross and weird. Why would anyone say that? And then even attacks on the way that I looked or the way that I got overly excited about things. Or you can see that I very much have this growth mindset, I'll call it. Carol Dweck is a psychologist that has termed this growth mindset where you're just constantly like learning and pushing yourself, right? Like there's no limit. You can make yourself more than you are today. It's not a fixed ability. It's something that you can grow. And you see that playing out in the show where I'm like, oh, we could have done better this way. And after every leg that taped, my husband and I would say, here's some things that we did well on this leg, and here's some things that we didn't do well. Tomorrow, let's do better on the things we didn't do well, but remember what we did well. Well, of course, when they're editing, they only show like, we didn't do this well, we need to do this better. And it just looked like I was constantly getting on my husband or whining about not being amazing every second of every day, which who is, but when you're edited to 6 minutes in an hour show, of course. So I don't even know where that long-winded commentary was going, but there was just a lot of negativity because I didn't fit what middle America wanted to see from an Asian woman. And a lot of the comments were things that we're seeing in the headlines today, like sexualizing women, or that we need to fit some stereotype, and that when we step out of that stereotype, they want to cram us back into that bottle. And I didn't know all of that. I didn't have the self-awareness to understand that. I didn't understand that people didn't see me as a person, as a human. They just saw me as like this robot that was pushing myself to do harder. So yeah, that was really tough to watch, but it did make me have a lot thicker skin. And when I came back to work after the season aired, I remember I was struggling to get promoted to the first level of management. And I couldn't understand why. I was like, I'm doing really good work. I'm like outpacing my peers in our revenue growth. I'm really spending a lot of hours working with a ton of output and impact. And my HR director, I love her because she was real with me. She pulled me aside. She goes, Cindy, we need to see more of the Amazing Race Cindy in the office place, because that's the Cindy that can get promoted. I was like, what do you mean? I've been working so hard. That's the same person. She's like, we don't ever see that like intensely competitive, like strong thinker, leadership mentality here. Bring that to work. So I did that for a few months, and then I was immediately promoted. They were like, we knew it was in you. We just needed you to show it here. But I had fallen into my own trap of being at work and heads down, hard work. Someone's going to notice, someone's going to care about all the work I'm doing. And so that was a big moment for me, because I was able to break through that broken rung and kind of skip over where many people fall behind.
Yeah, and obviously, with it's an hour show, and they show at most 6 minutes of your personality, and that personality would have to be something that you're like the most engaged or the most animated, the most intense moments
Yes.
captured in those quick minutes, and I can see why they were expecting something.
Yes.
Yeah, and I have to ask, like, you mentioned you have a type A personality. And when when the questions come in and they're communicating with you either through various social media channels, did you feel like you had to answer every single response or comment?
I did at the beginning, and then partway through our season, I stopped engaging with the negative ones. At the time what we were on, Instagram wasn't big, but people would find you on Facebook, or they would tweet at you and say things. Or I had a lot of messages on LinkedIn too, which is kind of an obscure place to have those types of messages. But now, since the pandemic, a lot of people have been going back and binging the old seasons. And
Yes.
so a lot of people will message me on Instagram now, and I'm happy to engage in conversation as long as it's polite and positive. But I just ignore the bad ones. And I realize the bad ones aren't a reflection on me. It's a reflection of them and their small mindedness and their ignorance. And I don't need to engage with that. And I don't let that get to me anymore.
Of course. And well, if given the opportunity to do it one more time, would you go back?
Um, Initially, we said yes. So they had actually asked us to be on the last All-Star season.
Mhm.
And we said yes. And then CBS was like, well, we're going to do a no winner season. So then we weren't able to go on, which was fine. Um, I don't know now. I have 3 kids. I know you have kids. Like, what do you, I don't know. I don't know if it's worth it.
Yeah. But maybe something to prove that mom can do it. Mom can do it all.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I almost don't want to prove that mom can do
Yeah.
it all, because it sets a false sense of reality for the poor working moms who are like in this sandwich generation of caring for our elderly parents and caring for young children. And it's kind of just a fallacy to say we can do it all, but we can try.
Right. Very true. Very true. Now we just want to end this on like more of a positive note. So winning the Amazing Race has to be like one of the greatest accomplishments that you have ever happened in your life. Can you share with us just a little bit about what you did with that $1 million prize?
Yes. Well, half of it went to Uncle Sam. So,
Oh,
um, so yes, we made sure to pay our taxes as a dutiful citizen. And then we actually invested in a few startups that were all what we call triple bottom line businesses. So they have social impact, they have environmental impact, and they have financial impact. And so one of them is doing really well. It was actually founded by a Survivor contestant. And the CBS reality show networks, Survivor, Amazing Race, and
Mhm.
Big Brother, we have this like alumni network, I'll call it, that is kind of like a sorority or fraternity if you were in one of those in college. But so we got connected to Ian, who started a company. They call themselves Day Owl now. And they recycle plastic bottles in Haiti and other developing areas, and they turn them into fabric. So they save our, oceans from being flooded with plastic. They're employing Haitians who may otherwise not have a way to, feed their families. And they've built this incredible business model that we just fully get behind. So we've had a few of those investments over time and are just really proud to support that. Initially, we wanted to start our own business. So if you watch the season, we said that we would start something. As we did the work and we realized that there were so many good organizations already that just needed funding, we thought this is a better way for us to be able to impact the world versus trying to like create competition where it was unnecessary. So we've been really proud of that.
Thank you for that. And that pretty much sums up the questions on Amazing Race. I know some of our Facebook audience have posted some questions onto our Facebook Live. This is a question from Del Ting. Del Ting asks, how realistic is the final cut versus what actually happens?
So the Amazing Race is known in the industry to be the most real. There's not a lot of producer meddling. There's not a lot of, hey, Cindy, why don't you go do this? And then I'll catch that on video. There really isn't a lot of that. So the producers and the cameramen stay out of your way and just let things happen. They've designed the course so that they know the places that you're going to go, but they want to get your reaction on film. So it's pretty real, but because it's so condensed, a lot of the context is lost on people's personalities, but it's not, that's really it. Like you're just seeing like a slice of each of the people on the show because there's, 22 people and 12 episodes. Like you can't show every part of everybody's life. But other than that, it is pretty real. We're in those places. The timestamps are exactly as you see them. The clothes that you're wearing are the clothes that are on our back. There's not like magically appearing clothes. So yeah, or there's definitely no magically appearing food.
Very much so. Yeah, so also want to mention to the Facebook Live audience, if you do have a question for Cindy, now's the time. Please type your questions in the comments section and we'll answer as many as we can before our time with Cindy is up. Now, Cindy, you mentioned you're an avid book reader and I can see the list of books right behind you. What is your favorite book that you would recommend for someone that wants to get into or wants to level up with the corporate ladder?
Okay. I read a lot of books. I read 8 last week, I think. I'm on maternity leave, so I'm not working full time, so I can read a lot. But yeah, I read 8 last week. So specific to your question about advancing in the corporate world, Breaking the Bamboo Ceiling, that 100,000% recommend. That book breaks down all of our cultured behaviors and gives you ideas and suggestions on how do you break through those cultured behaviors. So for example, the whole like model minority myth, how do you break through that? Or the loudest duck gets shot versus the squeaky wheel gets the oil. How do you break through all of that? So absolutely recommend Breaking the Bamboo Ceiling.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Question from Tommy Natali. Are the taxi drivers in The Amazing Race really as bad as they seem on the show?
Yes, if not worse. Yes, they're not great. I remember in one episode we were in Thailand and man, our tuk-tuk driver was just horrific. Didn't have any gas, had a hole in the floor of his car, like didn't know where we were going. And then all of a sudden, like when it came time to pay, we had a dispute about how much we had agreed to pay. They didn't show any of that. They didn't show him being terrible and stopping multiple times for gas or multiple times for direction. They only showed me getting mad at him that they said they were going to call the police on us because we weren't going to give him the money that we agreed at the beginning of the episode to give him that amount of money. So yes, the taxi drivers are a constant source of a nightmare, but there are some amazing ones that you get too. So it's kind of the luck of the draw.
Absolutely. Kathleen asked, can you go shopping for souvenirs or snacks with the leftover money when you finish a leg?
You can, but you usually want to save your money for the next leg. And there's really very little left by the end of the leg. The producers have it down to such a science that they know basically exactly how much you're going to spend and how much you're going to need to carry forward to spend in the next leg. But occasionally we would buy food just because you're so famished if you're
Yeah.
racing for 36 hours and have no food. Some of the other teams, this is kind of gross, but some of the other teams would actually walk around in the airport and eat leftovers that people had left, like people you don't know, just other people in the airport.
Mhm.
And they would eat the leftovers because we were so hungry. But
Oh
yeah,
my
yeah.
God. Yeah. So what happens when you're just don't have money at all? Are you just out of luck? And the producers will be like, sorry.
Yeah, pretty much.
Wow.
So we ran out in one leg and we started fundraising. We were like begging people in the train station for money just for like €1 here or a few cents there. But yeah, if you're out of money, you're out of luck. Yeah. I mean, obviously, like if you're the last and they know it's an
Mhm.
elimination leg, the producers will get you to the final spot so that you're not like, that far behind.
Hanging
But
in there, calling
yeah,
for
they're not going to like
emergencies.
leave you unsafe in some
Yeah,
random destination, but you will get eliminated that leg.
I see. Right. Matt asked a question. Did you make any long-lasting friends from your season?
Yes, almost all of them actually, even as intense as I was. Yes. We had many of them that came to our wedding. Um, if you've watched the season 19, Justin and Jennifer, the brother and sister couple, are like some of our closest friends that we talk to on a almost daily basis. Sandy of Sandy and Jeremy, who placed in second, we talk to pretty frequently. And then we have a lot of friends from other seasons. Rachel and Brendan, who were on Big Brother and then went on The Amazing Race. Eliza, who was on Survivor and then The Amazing Race. All the other seasons near us.
Mhm.
Megan and Shane, who are winners. Victor G, actually, if anyone knows the other Asian couple that won, Victor G and his sister Tammy won. This is the craziest story. We told my parents that we were on the show, and then my parents started telling their friends. And one of my dad's friends said, well, if your kids win, then we'll have two friends from college whose kids won. And my dad was like, who had never seen the show, my dad was like,
Mhm.
what are you talking about? And he goes, oh, Robert G's kids were on the show and they won. And my dad and Robert G were roommates in
Mhm.
college. And Victor and Tammy won a few seasons before us. And our parents had lost touch when my parents moved to Ohio. And so they got reconnected. And so over like 35 years later, 30 years later, our parents became friends again and started communicating and visiting each other. Robert had moved back to Taiwan with his wife. And so my parents would visit them in Taiwan. So that is like just a cool, crazy story. So we're really close to Victor. And then Tammy also works at Google. So I can talk to her during the daytime. And yeah, it's just kind of fun.
Yeah, that's so great to hear because we see these reality shows nowadays where they pit one person against another and then they go and attack each other on blogs or send each other on tweets. Whereas, the Amazing Race, the way that you described it was a very enjoyable experience and you were able to develop those long-lasting friendships.
Yeah, I think the difference is in the other shows, they're all you vote people out or there's alliances that happen. And in the race, it's like you and your teammate versus the race course. You don't have to worry about what anyone else is doing. So of course, unless you're really mean and vindictive, you can still come through it with friends.
All right. Elizabeth Green asked, what are the key tips to managing your time between a high-level job at Google and having 3 kids?
Yes. Oh man, I'm not great at it. But some of the things that I do try to do are I focus on the picking the work that has the most impact rather than takes the most time. So there's some things that take a lot of time to do and have like good visibility impact. But then there's other things that you can find along the way that doesn't really take that much time, or you can recruit others to help you to do it and still gives you the visibility and impact so that you can do more with less time. And then I prioritize like crazy. I have to prioritize time with my kids. As soon as I'm home, my phone goes down from like 6 to 8 o'clock, where I'm just full on with my kids. The weekends, I try to not be on my phone and I'm just with them. But it's hard to split time among 3 kids and like make time for my husband. My husband gets the shortest end of the stick. He's like definitely the one I don't have as much time, personally with. And friends, I don't even know. We just like have new friends. My kids' friends' parents are now our friends. And we try to maintain some relationships, but it's not in person as easy as it used to be. But yeah, focus and prioritize big important pieces and picking out times of the day that you're just not gonna, be connected to work.
Of course. And because of, we're living in this pandemic, did you feel like, that you're just managing your high level job and having 3 kids, was it easier because you're now, with your family 24/7, or did you feel like it's now difficult?
Um, in a lot of ways, working from home full time was way easier. So last year, or not last year, 2019, I traveled 47 times. There's only 52 weeks in the year. I traveled 47 of them. And that was a lot. That was really hard. So in 2020, by March 10th is when they declared the pandemic. March 11th was when Google said everyone's working from home. By that point, March 10th, I'd already been on 12 business trips. So full stop, not traveling. And then I commute an hour a day to and from work because I live in the suburbs and we work in the city. Saved me 10 hours a day, right? So not commuting and not traveling. I have so much more time with my kids and have been able to enjoy that time with them. So everyone who's been like crazy working from home with kids at home, I'm kind of like, this is probably better than traveling and working in a normal world. So we'll see how it goes when I get back to work.
Oh yeah, to see how we adjust to our new norm.
Right, right.
Yeah. Right. This also just a question on the Amazing Race. As just to please our avid fans of the Amazing Race. Do you have any insights? Are they filming right now, or are they pausing production? What is
Mm.
going on?
So they were 3 episodes into the next season of filming, and they shut down production and everyone quarantined for 10 days and then went home. Um, they will plan to go back out on the race once all the vaccination is complete and it's safe to travel. Again, there are a lot of countries not taking US travelers at this moment, so they have to wait for those barriers to come down. So they have been trying to figure out how to get that filming back up to speed. They're still accepting applications, although not super actively, but there is plan to film another season after that. So there hopefully will be at least a few more seasons. This year marks 20 years of the show, which is amazing. Not that many shows can last that long, but this year's 20 years. Survivor is filming. Big Brother does plan to go back. But yeah, they're working through things. The ones that they're obviously quarantined anyway, like Survivor and Big Brother, are a little easier to do.
And of course, time will tell, when that production resumes. But of course, in the meantime, there's 32 seasons, or I believe even more than that, to watch on our streaming platforms.
Yes, you could catch the Canadian versions or the Australian versions, or they have a new show, Race to the Center of the Earth. Tough as Nails is also the same production.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Oh yeah, and that's with Phil, the host, right?
right. Phil's the same host, but the
Mhm.
same executive producers, Elise and Bertram, do those 3 shows.
Of course. All right. Dell Ting, not a question, but a comment. Dell and Cindy worked at the same company in 2004 to 2007. Hi,
Oh,
Dell. Dell Ting knows someone at Kraft who knows Cindy.
okay.
Well, Dell, please connect with Cindy. All right. Looks like that pretty much sums up all the time that we have questions for Cindy. If you still have questions, of course, please put them in the Facebook comment feature. We still have a little bit of time, but now we're going to have a few closing announcements on behalf of Excel. So as we continue to carry our mission and vision, there are some upcoming events that we want everyone to join us and continue to learn and get inspired by fellow Asian Americans. The next event will be hosted by Excel SoCal tomorrow, April 15th at 6:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time for another Facebook Live webinar with Chini, founder, builder, and Eno player of Straight A Inc. Mr. Nee will be hosting a Zoom special effects workshop. Excel National will also be hosting another event scheduled for Tuesday, May 4th with Katie Chin. We will have a live cooking show with Katie Chin, an Asian food expert, cookbook author, TV personality, blogger, and working mom. On Thursday, June 3rd, the Phoenix Excel chapter is holding a fundraising event through a dumpling eating contest. More information will be posted on our page on how to support our cause, as well as additional details for the event. Again, if you'd like to stay in the loop or be more involved with Excel, you're welcome to join us as a member. We have chapters in Phoenix, Southern California, San Jose, Las Vegas, as well as the collegiate chapters with the University of Arizona and Arizona State University. The process to join is easy, and information on what membership can provide can be found on our website. Once again, thank you all for joining us this evening. We would like to spend a special thanks to our volunteers, Faye and Jason, in connecting us with our guest speaker, Cindy Halvorsen, and planning this event. Thank you to the rest of the Excel members, Kathleen Leming, Matt Hum, and Nicole Lee, for making this event for us tonight. Thank you and have a good night.